Hi everyone and welcome back to Stephan Livera podcast. Today I'm talking with Prashanth. Prashanth is the CEO and founder of Bringin, and I will just disclose up front, I am an investor and advisor in this company also, but I think it's an interesting startup and an interesting product, especially for Eurozone or EEA people, yeah, let's start there. Well, I guess we'll start with a little bit on you, Prashanth. First of all, welcome to the show, and give us a little bit of your background as a Bitcoin entrepreneur and how you started working in the space, and what brought you to Bringin.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Stephan. It's great to be here. I started. So my first Bitcoin introduction was in 2017 when I heard about the price going up, and my friend was talking about Bitcoin. And that's how I got introduced to Bitcoin. But during my college days, I was much interested in entrepreneurships and always wanted to work in startups. I'm an engineer myself. I was building side projects. So these were the kind of intersections, like the Bitcoin world, kind of intrigued me in 2017, and passion towards building products and building startups. So in 2019, I started reading book Mastering Bitcoin by Antonopoulos. It's such a great book. When I was reading it, it just was so shocking to me that something like this can exist and the way it works. And then I couldn't but stop exploring opportunities in startups who were building on Bitcoin at the time. So that's when I was fortunate to find a startup. Back then was working on Bitcoin payments for EU. The company name is Lastbit, and then I joined in as an engineer. So I was the second engineer back then, and then that's where my journey of building Bitcoin products started. So
Yeah. Okay. And let's start with, let's go to this concept of the main pain point that you see that you are helping to solve, right? Like, I guess, what did you see as the big pain point that then drove you to actually go and found Bringin and now start doing this stuff with Bringin?
So when I was working in Lastbit, I used to get paid in Bitcoin. It was cool. It was nice to have Bitcoin salary. That's the best way to acquire Bitcoin, according to me. But the problem was I was not able to liquidate it. So I was in EU. At Lastbit, we built a debit card which allows users to fund debit card with Lightning and Pay, but then we couldn't scale because of the regulatory changes. That almost had me not use Lastbit products. We had to seize the product lines. So I was looking for exchanges to liquidate Bitcoin. Kraken at the time halted withdrawals or any SEPA withdrawals to the bank. I was in Estonia. So, and then I had to look for other alternatives, and Binance was one more alternative, which was terrible. So my friend had warned, I had gotten multiple notifications from Revolut when I transfer funds from Binance. It's not the safest option, but I didn't have a choice because all my funds are in Bitcoin, and I had to liquidate it. So Binance, the UX was terrible. It took a lot of time for me to understand how it works because I'm not a trader. I don't understand exchanges. And more importantly, it took days to get euros into my bank account. So it almost felt like my Bitcoin is not usable. And I was surprised even in 2020, the Bitcoin is not usable. And this is absolutely fundamental to be able to buy and liquidate Bitcoin at the speed of sending a bank transfer or SEPA payments. So that's what exactly motivated for me to Bringin.
Gotcha. Yeah, and as you were saying that it's been a common thing, and this is unfortunately becoming a common thing all around the world, that basically AML, the AML kind of noose is constantly tightening, and what a lot of people are facing today is if they sell some Bitcoin on an exchange and withdraw some fiat into their fiat bank account because they need to pay their bills or whatever, and then often at multiple steps on that journey, you'll get stopped and be like, hey, where's this funds? What's the source of funds? Etc. And then you end up dealing with compliance staff in a bank somewhere or compliance staff at a Bitcoin exchange somewhere. And now I want to be fair here, right? Because sometimes it's not their fault specifically. It's actually more like the regulation that's driving some of this. And it's maybe the mindset that's driving this at an overall level. So I don't want to like shoot the messenger per se, but the end result for many Bitcoiners who would like to live on Bitcoin, to earn and spend Bitcoin, is that they spend all this time dealing with compliance staff, or they worry that their account will get shut down because they received some fiat from a crypto or a Bitcoin exchange. And that's just that's where we're at. Do you want to just react on that? Is that the story that you have seen? Is that aligning with what you hear from customers?
Yeah, that's right. So I totally agree with that. So it's not like exchanges or many platforms would provide that allows users to like swap between like euros and bitcoins, or mainly trading platforms or custody exchanges or app that allows you to invest in Bitcoin. So most of them are optimizing the entire user experience to get users to hold Bitcoin in the custody. So not necessarily focusing on OG Bitcoiners or the Bitcoiners who held Bitcoin through the tough times and they want to liquidate it. So those who are underserved and most well-deserved people, they need a good tools and solutions. So it's just the matter of building a solution focused to Bitcoiners versus trying to build a solution to onboard the next, like get Bitcoin to everyone's hand. Of course, that's important, but while building tools to Bitcoiners, you eventually build tools to everyone else. From the compliance perspective, so regulations are there and that needs to be complied. It's just a matter of what you're optimizing for as a company. Are you optimizing for safe off-ramping, or you neglect that and then you just focus on on-ramping? So that makes a huge difference for the customer.
I see. And so maybe then just give us a bit of an overview. What is the product with Bringin? Who is the customer base that you are serving, and what are the main product offerings you offer?
Sure. So as I told, the pain point I faced was liquidating Bitcoin. So I used to earn in Bitcoin. Being able to use Bitcoin was the fundamental problem. So the initial product we launched was a simple web app that allows users to send Bitcoin from any of the self-custody wallets or any wallets and then get euros instantly into their bank account. So without any issues from the banks. So this was the first version of Bringin, and we wanted to onboard Bitcoiners who hold Bitcoin and who want to liquidate it. So we provide a virtual IBAN accounts for every customers, and we route the bank transfers via the virtual IBAN account. So the receiving bank accounts see the transfers coming from your own personal virtual IBAN account and not from any exchange, which reduces significantly the risk of blocking or any additional questions for the banks. So as we suspected, this worked, and we were able to serve a lot of Bitcoiners who want to liquidate huge funds or small funds via Lightning.
Yeah.
So,
and just give us an overview there in terms of the amounts here, right? Because you're saying it can be small amounts or large amounts. Give us a sense of that. Like, what are some of the smaller amounts that people are doing, and what are the larger amounts? Obviously, without doxing individuals, but just kind of averages or everyday numbers. What kind of numbers are people doing on the platform?
So the smallest transactions are like 10 euros. That's what we support. These are the people who use Lightning more often, and they liquidate instantly into their bank account or a debit card, so which we later launched. But the bigger transactions is, let's say, like 200,000 euros transactions. When we launched, the Bitcoin price was a lot lesser. The Bitcoin was
right,
like
so
two,
that was
three
a lot
Bitcoin.
less Bitcoin, or sorry, that was a lot more Bitcoin back then, whereas now it's not even 2 Bitcoin, right? 1.8 or whatever it is. Okay, interesting. And so for, I guess, in the earlier days, maybe amongst the early, let's say, beta clients in the closed beta, I guess a lot of them were understanding Bringin as this kind of off-ramp for European Bitcoiners. That's kind of the loose understanding of it, right? That they would have some Bitcoin, either they're earning it or they've been hodling for years and they need to spend some. And so they would either send it on chain or send it on Lightning. And so I guess the main thing is to understand this is like, yes, it's a KYC platform, but it allows you to self-custody, Bitcoin on chain and Lightning, and then send it at the point that you need to sell some for fiat. I guess that was the main understanding, at least in the earlier days with the product, right?
That's right. Most of the off-ramping solutions want you to like put Bitcoin in there and they give debit card against it. And it's always custodial, or if you just want to like use it as a bridge, it's not convenient. It's not built for that. So it's just complicated. So we wanted to not take Bitcoin, just create a tool that links your self-custody and bank, and which works flawlessly 100 times. and it works instantly.
Yeah.
So instant transfers and Lightning.
And then, as I understand, it's not only an off-ramp, right? Like there are other services that you offer, even though it's maybe that's what people understand it as. Can you just give us an overview there in terms of the other services that you're offering there?
Yeah, so we started off as an off-ramping platform, mainly focusing and helping Bitcoiners with a need that's not served. But what essentially we built is a bridge or a link between self-custody and their bank. So like users can move funds from the bank to their wallet and wallet to their bank account with no friction whatsoever. So in terms of time, in terms of stress, in terms of certainty, uncertainty, so they have information upfront. They know what they're getting. The user experience is optimized to link their wallet and their bank. So that's what we are building. It's a link between their wallet and their bank account. And this allows them to live on Bitcoin, which is the main mission that we want to solve. So living on Bitcoin is not a popular opinion, at least at the time, but at least right now. But there are some set of people who want to live on Bitcoin, and there are advantages for that. So creating this link allows them to do so. And we added one more addition to this link, which is a debit card that allows you to fund with any Lightning or on-chain transfers to pay anywhere in the world.
Gotcha. So yeah, that also helps people who have Bitcoin and need some kind of fiat off ramp. Of course, we all wish we could just earn and spend Bitcoin natively all the way through, but that's not the world we're in today, at least in October 2025. And so that's why many Bitcoiners all around the world have to use some form of fiat, whether it's a debit card, a credit card, or physical cash, something to deal with things for now. And so I guess the other big, as you were touching on before, one of the innovations is this idea of using a virtual IBAN that is in the customer's own name. So that reduces the risk of having to being asked all these questions, because it looks like, to the fiat banks, it looks more just like a self-account transfer.
That's right. Yeah. And so what, like you mentioned about like debit cards, cash, right? So Bitcoin is a payment. Bitcoin is built for payments, and unfortunately, that's not happening today because not a lot of merchants accept Bitcoin payments. But we want to solve that. So I'm a huge believer of self-custody and Lightning. So Lightning, of course, when everyone accepts Bitcoin, and then Lightning can be used for payments and all that. But I also think there is a lot more that can be optimized with existing payment networks with Lightning. So if you have on and off ramp on the both ends using Lightning as a settlement layer, which is free, which is instant, which is scalable, which is global, so you can not deal with all this hacky SEPA, Swift, UPI, and a lot of local networks and global networks, which is used to settle the funds. So you could just use Lightning as a settlement layer for moving fiat across until the Bitcoin is used as a medium of exchange or unit for account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And talk to us a little bit about the debit cards set up there. So what's the process there? Is it just basically like onboarding in the app, you do your KYC, sign up, and you can then get a physical debit card or the virtual one? Talk us through how that works.
So user needs to do KYC to get the debit cards. So once they do KYC, they get a physical and virtual debit cards both, and they can create multiple physical and virtual debit cards. So this is a Euro debit card, and that can be funded with Lightning at any time. So users, like, we built a Lightning address that's linked to your IBAN account and the debit card, which shares the balance. So essentially you can type in Lightning address in any of your Lightning wallets and send Bitcoin, and it's ready to tap and use in debit cards.
So that's really fancy, because then the user can just interface with Lightning addresses, which is very a nice experience, because then they can just have a contact list in their apps, or some apps have it, not all of them do. But then it's a very slick experience, right? Because it's just pick this Lightning address, how many sats do you want to send? And then, yeah, there's stuff in the background, but you don't have to think about it. It just happens. And then at the end, you're getting fiat into that off-ramp, in this case, the debit card.
All of it takes just 15 seconds. In Phoenix, most of our customers are they use Lightning and they prefer self-custody and they have different Lightning setup of their own. So to force them to use a particular Lightning wallet would be wrong. We build and we leverage the Super protocol Lightning Address, which is amazing protocol. So it just take 15 seconds. As I said, they can save the contact names, send 20,000 sats, which is almost 20 euros. And then it's available instantly to spend. So it gives you flexibility to hold Bitcoin anywhere and use its debit card, which can plug into any of your Lightning wallet or turn your Lightning wallet into a daily spending tool, even today.
Great. And so what has the feedback been like from the early users who were using it in the closed beta?
So there are like two sets of customers that we serve, basically. So one is the people who want to liquidate huge amount of Bitcoin. That could be for bigger purchases like real estates, houses, and a lot of other things. So they've been holding Bitcoin from a long time and they want extremely convenient solutions and they want certainty of things happening. So working with these customers has been great because since we're in beta, I personally try to connect with a lot of these customers and then help towards the process. So now the product is completely optimized for serving those customers, even if they want to buy houses Bitcoin or if they want to sell the house or real estate and convert that into Bitcoin. We have all the process and documentation set, so we can provide bigger amount. So we had some learning curve while we are doing so. What kind of documentations will bank ask and all this? What is the exact problem that customers are facing when they want to, it's not very common that you think about buying a Bitcoin with house because it has how, where, who will ask which questions. So there's a lot more uncertainty. So going through this entire process with multiple customers allows us to create a standard process to help this out. And we learned a lot along the way. And there's a cohort of other users who do daily Bitcoin off-ramping or monthly off-ramping they earn in Bitcoin. And there's a small cohort of customers who buy Bitcoin to self-custody every month. So the feedback has been good so far. It's fast. So that's the main feedback. It just works and it's fast.
Yeah.
And it
And
works
while we're here,
24/7.
actually, what are the fees, just for listeners to understand, what are the fees that you charge for this off-ramping?
So we charge flat 1% and we get a small markup which can go up to 0.5% from our partners. So effectively, the user gets the service for up to 1.5%.
Gotcha. And are there any volume discounts there, or is it just a flat fee?
It's just flat fee right now. There's no volume discounts. Especially when you are liquidating huge amounts, more than 1%, 1.5%, you want the convenience and the reliability aspect. So we kept it one stuff.
Yeah, I think it's fair enough, really, because if you think about how much you would pay otherwise, it is basically going to end up in that range, just depending on which service providers and how you do things. Maybe there are ways to do it slightly cheaper, but then you're bringing back again that risk of you're getting your account shut down or whatever, this kind of thing, or getting asked all the questions from the compliance department, this kind of thing. On the EU side of things, what about MiCA, right? So this is the big deal, markets in crypto assets regulation. It's the big deal in the EU. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How is that impacting you and your business, if at all?
So essentially what they're trying to do is standardize the regulations, and which is in par with regulations that would be required to comply to run a bank or e-money bank, electronic money institutes. So the regulations are stricter, as in you need to comply with a lot more regulations than what you had to before. And the regulation is standardized across the EU. So no country virtual asset service licenses are different from other country virtual asset service license. So it has both that, it's both good and a bad for the community. So obviously more KYC is always bad, more regulations, more monitoring is always bad. It's bad to the privacy and it's not what users want. But on the flip side, just the fact that you can self-custody Bitcoin and and you're not being treated as a criminal. So to self-custody Bitcoin or to be able to pay with Bitcoin, that convenience brings in more adoption, brings in more sense of safe feeling for a lot of customers to hold Bitcoin in the self-custody or buy Bitcoin or pay with Bitcoin. So that kind of leads to the adoption. But of course, there's a lot of regulations around it. Eventually, if people self-custody Bitcoin enough, and if there's circular economy starting to growing, so we can bypass the entire regulation route and then just use Bitcoins for the payments.
This episode is brought to you by CoinKite, the makers of my favorite Bitcoin hardware wallet, the Cold Card Q. Now, some people think self-custody is too hard, but it's really about taking responsibility for your Bitcoin wealth and understanding that self-custody gives you a true feeling of liberty. The Cold Card Q has a full keyboard and big screen. It's got 2 secure elements and a true air gap, allowing you to go fully air-gapped using QR codes from seed generation to transaction signing. You can power the device using 3 AAA batteries, so you don't even have to plug it into the wall for power. You can easily use it with Sparrow Wallet for PC or Nunchuck on mobile, and you can dial it into the right level of security and complexity that you choose. If you want a simple setup, just use 12 words and single signature. If you want passphrases, easy. If you want to add multi-sig or co-signing features, you've got those too. So go to coinkite.com, use code Livera to get 10% off on your cold card or other devices and level up your self-custody today. I see. Yeah, so as I understand it, it's like they're putting in this kind of regulation in the EU. It's coming into play. And one of the interesting things is that you can get compliant in one EU jurisdiction and then passport out to the rest of the EU aspects of it. So I guess that's one element that, you know, can help an entrepreneur. On the downside, of course, you have to kind of fit into that regulation. I've heard criticism from some parts of the Bitcoin ecosystem that the way MiCA was written is that it sometimes it puts things into a certain box, and there are certain businesses and software developers who don't neatly fit into that box. And so that can be a bit hard. And then, of course, just in general, the increased kind of cost of dealing with regulation, which is obviously difficult for a smaller, younger startups that aren't as kind of well capitalized as the large banks and the large already existing crypto exchanges and things like this. So I guess that's how I'm understanding it there. But in terms of the impact to bring in, I presume you're going to continue operating and keep growing your customer base.
So just about the difficulty in getting MiCA, just expanding on that. Yes, as you rightly said, bucketing a particular kind of transactions as MiCA. Under MiCA, bucketing some transactions requiring certain regulations is they're getting harder for a lot of entrepreneurs to, build payment processing and a lot more other simple apps that require MiCA license again, which is a lot stricter. You need a lot of capital investments and most of your efforts is just to comply for the regulations. You have lawyers and you always deal with the lawyers more than innovating. That's the unfortunate truth. That's unfortunately there. So a lot of things have changed, even the payment processors who help merchants accept Bitcoin payments. They route the Bitcoin payments. They want to have payment service PSP licenses, which falls under MiCA, which is again stricter to get it. So there's a lot more companies which will either take a different route. They go self-custody or they go license. It's getting very clear separations. You either raise a lot of funds, build a venture scale company and grow the team and comply to the regulations, or you go self-custody routes. So when it comes to Bringin, we are still a technology company. So we rely on services that provided by our partner, and we haven't taken that. We haven't taken that decision yet, but we'll always be a technology company that allows us to innovate and outsource the compliance aspect to the trusted partners. And we want to do that all across the world the same way we do want to be a compliance company. We want to be a technology company, focusing more innovations on self-custody and Lightning.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit about, you also have a self-custodial Lightning wallet or like a liquid-based, as I understand, it's like the Breeze SDK nodeless. So tell us a little bit about the Bringin wallet and what you're doing there.
We started Lightning wallet very early days of the beta. So we started with a node approach with Greenlight. Keys are held in the phone and the node is running remotely on a green blockchain infrastructure.
Right. So as I understand, that's the Greenlight model, and then now you're switching to the nodeless model.
Right. So we tried that model. That kind of took time, and then we put a lot of effort in getting that working. But while internally testing with our customers, we couldn't get that to the speed that we wanted or the reliability that we wanted. So we stopped that. We revoked access for the customers. We didn't have Lightning Wallet ourselves. But having a Lightning Wallet kind of completes the entire circle. So because if like more customers, if they don't have wallet, where do I start with? And then guiding them to set up Blue Wallet or like a self-custody Phoenix wallet is much harder. So that was the intent behind our integrated wallet that is in your phone that works instantly, that's self-custody, and it has both Lightning and on-chain transfer. So now we have seen a lot of products already built on Liquid and Bold Swap with Breeze SDK, so which works at scale. So that's the implementation that we're using, our Breeze SDK. So Bitcoin is in Liquid blockchain, and then we use Bold Swaps to make Lightning payments. So we're not particular about using Liquid or Sparks or Arc or anything like that, but we started with Liquid because it's scaled and it works for our customers, but eventually we could upgrade to other technologies as and when needed based on the requirements that we have.
Gotcha. Yeah, so just summarizing for listeners, Breeze are helping developers of other and entrepreneurs and developers who want to integrate Lightning capability into their app, and one of the ways they're doing that, at least currently, is using Liquid. So this nodeless form of the Breeze SDK allows the users to, let's say, hold their balance at rest, Bitcoin balance in LBTC, but when they want to make Lightning payments, it's kind of in the background, it's using bolts.exchange to do like a swap. So the user is paying with Liquid Bitcoin, not main chain Bitcoin, to be clear, they're paying with Liquid Bitcoin, and actually in the background, Bolts is kind of doing that swap and making the Lightning payment or taking the Lightning payment for them and swapping it back into Liquid Bitcoin. And the benefit for the end user is he gets a very simple experience. He doesn't have to think about channels. It's just kind of a very quote unquote just works sort of feeling. And then, of course, there is a trade-off with that because you're holding Liquid Bitcoin. You're taking certain trade-offs with that. But for a lot of these users, that might be a reasonable trade-off. It might be a reasonable custodial in terms of LBTC. So yes, they are able to self-custody Liquid Bitcoin, but actually in the background, it's the Liquid Federation that 11 of 15 multi-sig is actually holding the Bitcoin because Liquid is a sidechain, right? So that's how I'm understanding it. But nevertheless, what we're kind of explaining is more for let's say for the developers and builders and people who want to know about some of these trade-offs. Of course, the end user, he's just clicking send and clicking receive, and he doesn't really think about these things. He just does it, and it quote unquote just works.
Yes, and the cost is also a lot lesser than let's say Phoenix Wallet, which comes with a node which is running on your phone, and it works. So that's what most of the people care for, and still today a lot of people use custodial Lightning wallets, which works, which has a great user experience. So if the community or like the users are more inclining towards, I don't care, I'll just put $200. Not I don't put my entire savings there. I don't care to give up the custody of like $200, $300 and then use the custody Lightning wallets. So getting them to self-custody with cheaper swaps transactions is a great user experience. So users can like hold huge amounts of Bitcoin without worrying. It's not only self-custody, there's a lot more aspect to it. So one is privacy and sovereignty. So Bringin, although we do KYC, we can't stop you from making payments from your Lightning wallet. We don't know how much balance you hold, and you can send it to anyone, and there's no transaction monitoring and anything like that. So we could, with our services that we have from partner, we could provide a custodial Lightning wallet, and that would ease out a lot of our operations and a lot of our development efforts. But we care about self-sovereignty, and even if the user don't care, we want them to know that it's private. You can send anywhere the payments, and it's self-custody. We can't do anything about it.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what trade-offs make sense. It seems to me like some of this is being driven a little bit there has been some more interest in things like Spark and Arc as well, which are alternative L2s, which still resolve back to Bitcoin main chain in the exit cases. But I think some of that interest is just being driven by government regulation and increased KYC, again, like KYC and compliance and AML kind of concerns. And so I guess that's probably one thing where, given the legal and political environment, it's sort of going against custodial wallets, and then the response is, I guess, to sort of shift to some of these L2s like Arc and Spark and Liquid and so on, to make a self-custodial experience. So I guess that's probably what we're seeing there. I guess any overview, anything else you want to mention about it? I guess talk a little bit about where things are going now with your launch.
We hit an important milestone recently. Our apps are live on App Store and Play Store, and we have a Lightning wallet inside these apps. Currently only tested by a few customers, so they can send and receive payments on Lightning wallet. But for most of them, it's an on-off ramping platform on the app. It's users can spend Bitcoin using debit cards, physical cards, virtual cards. They can buy any amount of Bitcoin to their self-custody 24/7. They can liquidate Bitcoin to their banks. This is so we call it a complete Bitcoin app because it has both self-custody and receive aspect of it, and also spend aspect of it with debit cards, and then on-off ramping with ease, and it works 24/7. So we went live with this consumer product, and then we do have more plans to expand this for the businesses as well. So as I said, as a consumer, it's so hard to like buy and sell Bitcoin or like liquidate Bitcoin. As a business, it's even harder to do so. So that's the next thing we will be solving for businesses, what we did for the consumers, and all of this ties to Lightning, and then users can accept Lightning payments and consumers can pay Lightning. So we are heading towards building the payments, both from the business accepting Lightning payments and consumers being able to pay with Lightning.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, as I mentioned at the top of this episode, I am an advisor. I am an advisor and investor in this company. I think it's interesting that it's allowing this sort of self-custodial but easy off-ramping experience, especially for people who want to earn and spend Bitcoin. I understand, it's kind of, there's different aspects of Bitcoin, right? Like nowadays, obviously, it's hard to deny the impact of Bitcoin ETFs and treasury companies and things like this. But we also have the self-custodial earning and spending side of Bitcoin, which obviously I'm also supportive of. I hope to see more people doing that. But I also understand it's early days, all right? And so, so I guess I'll leave it there. So if any European listeners or people in the Eurozone are interested in this as an on or off ramp, maybe it's interesting for you. And so Prashanth, where can people find you online if they want to find out more about you or Bringin?
Twitter is the best place. So Bringin.xyz is our Twitter handle. And if they want to reach out to me, I'm available on Twitter again, like Prashanth123. So that's my handle. And I can answer any questions if they have.
Gotcha. Yeah, and the website for listeners, anyone listening, is Bringin.xyz. You can find it there. Prashanth, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Stephan. It was nice